I never imagined I'd be writing this story, but recent events have forced me to share what happened. I'm 42 and my husband is 45. We've been together for 22 years and have 3 wonderful children. Our youngest is 7, our middle child is 14, and our oldest is 16. Our journey to having our first child wasn't easy. We spent 3 frustrating years trying to conceive, visiting fertility specialists, and trying various medications since IVF was beyond our budget. We were about to look into adoption when something terrible happened that changed everything. One evening, while my husband was out with his cousin, our house was broken into. I was attacked. At the hospital, I received emergency treatment, knowing it might undo all our efforts to conceive, but I couldn't risk carrying an attacker's child. The following months were incredibly difficult. I was barely eating and assumed my nausea was from depression and trauma. When I discovered I was pregnant, our initial joy quickly turned to uncertainty. At my first appointment, the doctor told me I was already 14 weeks along, not the 5 or 6 weeks we'd expected. I'd been having irregular spotting, which I'd attributed to the emergency treatment. My husband and I were devastated, realizing the implications about paternity. During the ultrasound, something changed in both of us. Seeing our baby on the screen, we knew we couldn't give them up. After many long discussions about adoption and what we'd do if the baby wasn't biologically his, my husband said something I'll never forget. Paternity doesn't matter. Let's just not find out. We agreed to wait until our child was older to tell them about the situation, letting them decide if they wanted to know the truth. The criminal who attacked me wasn't caught until years later. When he was finally sentenced last year, I attended the hearing. Our older children knew I'd been attacked, but didn't know the full story. Life went on normally until last Christmas when my mother-in-law bought our oldest child, and only our oldest, a DNA testing kit. I thought it was odd but didn't think too deeply about it. My child was confused too and offered it to me since I'm adopted, but I suggested they get an Amazon gift card instead. Things started getting strange after that. My mother-in-law began making peculiar comments about our oldest's appearance, questioning their eye color, height, and build. While our child does look just like me with the same eyes and hair, they're quite tall at 6 feet. I'm 5 feet 8 inches. And unlike my husband and me who are on the heavier side, they're naturally slim and athletic. When my child pointed out these odd comments, I tried talking to my mother-in-law, but she dismissed it as oversensitivity. Then 2 months ago, she invited us to dinner without the kids, saying she had something important to discuss. What happened next would shake our family to its core. At the restaurant, my mother-in-law handed each of us an envelope. Inside were DNA comparison results. When I asked what they were, her words cut through me like ice. "This is proof that you're the trash I always knew you were." My heart stopped as I realized what she'd done. She'd somehow obtained DNA samples from my husband and our oldest child. I'll never forget the look on my husband's face when he saw those results. A mixture of hurt, confusion, and betrayal that will haunt me forever. I called my mother-in-law some choice words, and we left immediately. I blocked her number on my phone and our children's phones, leaving my husband to decide how to handle his relationship with his mother. The next evening, my husband told me he'd visited his mother after work. She claimed she'd suspected something was wrong for years after overhearing her son talking to his brother's wife about paternity concerns. She'd taken it upon herself to do a DNA test last year, around the time of the court hearing. What we didn't know was that my husband had gotten drunk one night and mentioned some details about the hearing to his brother. In his drunken state, he'd apparently muttered, "I couldn't protect her. What if she's not mine?" He had no memory of this conversation, but his mother had latched onto it. When my husband confronted his mother, she kept trying to convince him to leave me. That's when he told her something we'd kept private for 16 years, that I had been assaulted, and that's who our child's biological father might be. He told her she was unforgivable and to never contact us again. The aftermath was messy. I have 6 siblings, 4 supported me completely, but 2 sided with my mother-in-law, saying they understood her actions since she didn't have the whole story. But how could anyone justify secretly DNA testing a child and ambushing their parents with the results? We decided to do our own DNA test, as we weren't sure how my mother-in-law had obtained the samples for her test. The results confirmed what her test had shown. There was no biological relationship between my husband and our oldest child. The confirmation hit us hard, even though we'd always known it was a possibility. Our child has been incredibly understanding, more concerned about how they found out than the truth itself. They've been spending more time with my husband, sharing their common interests. Both have been attending therapy sessions, which we've encouraged for all our children since they were young. The hardest part was explaining everything to our other children. Our middle child now knows the full story, while our youngest only knows that their oldest sibling has a different biological father. We've been careful with genetic testing for health reasons, making sure our oldest has been screened for any potential hereditary conditions. Through all of this, I've struggled with intense emotions. While I know DNA doesn't define who we are as a family, I can't help feeling devastated knowing that Monster is responsible for any part of my child's existence. Yet I've never regretted our decision to keep our baby. Our child is brilliant, kind, and has brought so much joy to our lives. But just when I thought we were handling this situation well, life threw another curveball at us. My husband's younger sister Rachel, who's 22, showed up at our doorstep in tears 4 months ago. She was pregnant, and her boyfriend had abandoned her. Without hesitation, we welcomed her into our home. The first few weeks were fine. I spent countless hours comforting her, watching TV shows together, and eating ridiculous amounts of ice cream. We seemed to be bonding, but things soon started falling apart. I'm particular about keeping my house clean, but Rachel was the complete opposite. She'd leave clothes everywhere, dirty dishes scattered around, and once even left intimate items in our living room. When I tried talking to her about it, she broke down crying and promised to do better. Instead, she started expecting me to do her laundry, clean her room, and handle her dishes because she was pregnant. I work from home full-time while my husband works 12-hour shifts, so most household responsibilities fell on me. When I brought this up with my husband, his response shocked me. "Honey, she's going through a lot right now. We should be helping her. Besides, taking care of someone who's pregnant might help you feel better." His words stung. I'd recently lost a baby at 31 weeks, my third miscarriage, but he seemed to have forgotten my pain. The situation reached its breaking point when Rachel ate the only food I'd been able to enjoy since my loss, despite my specifically asking her not to touch it. My husband defended her again, saying I needed to be less selfish because she's pregnant. Then came the baby shower. Rachel planned it at our house without asking me. I wasn't sure I could handle being there, but my husband insisted. Halfway through the party, they announced they wanted to show everyone the nursery. My heart stopped. They were talking about my baby's nursery, the one I'd prepared for the child I lost. Seeing everyone in that room, complimenting Rachel on how well she'd set it up, something in me snapped. Through tears and rage, I confronted her about everything. Treating me like a maid, taking advantage of our kindness, and now this ultimate betrayal. Her response knocked the wind out of me. "It's not my fault you couldn't produce a child. Why let this go to waste? You're so selfish." I turned to my husband, trembling with anger and grief, and made him choose between us. When he couldn't answer, I ran upstairs. Later, I came down and ordered everyone out of my house. My husband tried to apologize the next morning, but then he said something unforgivable. Maybe my sister was right. "It's not my fault you lost our children." I slapped him, something I'm not proud of, and he retaliated by destroying my belongings and punching holes in the walls. When he tried to grab me, I kicked him away and told him to leave. My mother came immediately when I called her, took photos of the damage, and helped me contact a lawyer. Now I'm staying in a hotel preparing for divorce proceedings. 8 years of marriage are ending, and while part of me feels guilty for giving up, I know I can't continue living like this. Neither can he. Sometimes reality isn't like the movies where everyone forgives each other and lives happily ever after. Sometimes you have to walk away to save yourself, even if it breaks your heart.